Hey everyone, Suri here, and welcome back to another week of Light Season offense matches. Yuri's bonus week gave me an excellent chance to get some more experience with Gullveig hit-and-run tactics, so I had her hop seasons to see how she'd do against dark defenses. I did have her go back to Oath instead of Rain for this week. Without Naga on the team for easy access to the attack speed buffs, it's a better skill for her to have. Gullveig herself is an excellent hit-and-run mage. Even without a way to pierce damage reduction, she still does enough raw damage to break through some of the strongest tanks in the game. Her native Third Sparrow is a great multi-purpose skill that adds plenty of damage to each combat, while making it easier to stay out of range of the enemy team, and her limited version of Raging Storm gives her plenty of options for dismantling defenses. Yuri, a lot like last week, is a fantastic way to give Gullveig access to tricky corners of the map. Stacking HP lets him dismantle even hex traps safely, letting him take full advantage of his cavalry mobility and two-space Kanto. Foul Play is an excellent tool for getting his teammates into better positions, and is particularly strong with access to a Guidance 4 effect like Ash. Yuri being a bonus unit also let me use 2 dancers on the team this time, which adds a lot of flexibility to the ways they can navigate a defense. Triandra works as a bit of a substitute for Plumeria here, thanks to having Firestorm Dance for extra Kanto mobility shenanigans. I also got Crossbow Attack for Peony this week after picking up the Ninian Manual from Codes, which combines really nicely with her weapon's built-in cross-spur effect. Ash and Miller are mostly here as mobility and sabotage support. While they aren't quite as mobile as a Kanto-enabled Thor and Naga, the extra stats they can provide to Gullveig can be very helpful when breaking down some of the sturdier tanks, and ended up being necessary in one of the later matches. Now that we've gone over the team, let's get to the first match. This map was a neat one to see and features a really nice defensive layout to try and stop anybody from initiating safely on this on the first turn. The mountains, structures, and hex traps all do a really good job of preventing that, even for flying units who can cross the mountains without any problems. This maxed out the room is also a real treat to see. Guidance 4 and Guard Bearing make her really annoying to deal with, and Arcane Luin turns her into a pretty legitimate combat unit in her own right. Together with the Duo Asker, Brave Corin, Legendary Shez, and Brave Robin, this team has a lot of threat options and can be pretty tricky to just hit and run against if you can't handle Corin. I did figure out a way to get into this on the first turn, but it does require a bit of less than intuitive navigation. Repositioning Yuri forwards means he can foul play Shez onto the first hex trap, and since it's real, we can step over and take out Corin here. Attacking her from this tile makes it a lot easier for us to navigate back out of this turn.
Once more!
Since the gravity effect does stop her from moving too far on her own here. We get to knock out Medius next. And from there, a Kanto back gets Gullveig to safety. The rest of the team is just working on breaking structures to open things up a bit more for the following turn. And Yuri moving ahead of Milla here means that we'll be able to smite him in and get an easy foul play going this turn.
Give me an order.
Checking the heavy trap means I don't have to worry about just attacking until the room. Even if it's fake, it's still good to be safe about it instead of just risking 50-50.
The cycle's power.
And attacking the room first means that our next target is Robin, and keeps Gullveig at a pretty safe distance from the remainder of their team.
It will be so.
Knocking out both Laroom and Robin here also limits the team's mobility options a lot. Without Guidance 4 and the extra warp options that Robin offers, they can't move quite as far as they might want to, and certainly can't catch up to us after we retreat some more. From there, it's easy enough to move Gullveig in and take out the Asker. And I do need to be careful here about attacking at the correct angles. Attacking from a diagonal direction into Asker means that we set up fire to the right side of Shez, and by moving Ash over, we can let Gullveig warp over to attack Embla from another diagonal direction, and just surround Shez with fire on all sides. Doing that really limits her movement options, and means that we can foul play Ash over to the right side, dance Gullveig again, and have her pick up our first Aether pot. Shez can't reach us here, the fire is doing a lot to limit her options to move, so we can just break this healing tower, give ourselves access to the second Aether pot, and dance Gullveig to close out the match.
It matters not.
This was a fun map to run into. It's actually the first Emblean castle I've seen in the wild, and that made it a really cool setup to see. This maxed out Dimitri is a great cornerstone for their team, and he's backed up by a lot of ranged firepower, most notably from this Tea Time Sigurd, who's inherited a Flared Sparrow from a brave Gullveig, and a Defres Smoke to combo really nicely with his Chivalric Aura. Assuming he attacks safely, which isn't hard to do when he sweeps most weapon types, he gives +1 movement to his entire team, and enables Pathfinder for himself, letting his team charge through his space and take advantage of the fire he's planted to really go to work on the offense team coming into them. It's also a tricky setup to get into on turn 1. These crumbling walls do a great job of mitigating any warp effects from Ash, but thankfully they're not quite as good as they might want them to be. Moving Ash forward means that we can warp Yuri in and foul play Gullveig onto one of the traps, which did end up being fake, but it still gives her easy access to their New Year's Asker. With Asker down, we can move over and take out Sigurd, which will help a lot to limit their movement options for the following turns. The fire also does a lot for that, meaning that all I really need to do is move Ash forward, break the other wall, and then dance Gullveig and reposition Ash to safety. Veronica is limited slightly by fire patches in front of her, so I don't have to worry about her catching us this turn. And from there we can move Yuri in, dance him, I'll play onto the potential Hex Trap, which is fake, and go to work on the rest of their team. Veronica's our first target. She does have the longest range of any of the remaining team members. And while we are still dealing with Canto control, it's not something that we are going to be too crippled by. A smite forward lets Triandra dance Gullveig, and Gullveig can reposition Triandra to safety. And from here we just let them start approaching us. Dimitri ends up going down the other side of the map, since the crumbling walls are something he can break to reach us, which is a little unfortunate because I was hoping to actually break through him when he had his weapon online. Instead, we just get to have Gullveig one-shot the Yume through her damage reduction, before moving on to take down Embla. And after another dance, we can finally take out Medius and get rid of his Canto control. From here it's pretty straightforward to just move forward and start picking up Aether pots before we close things out. While Dimitri is very highly invested, he's not much of a threat when he's the only one left on his team. And he is going to have a hard time reaching us when there's a crumbling wall in the way and no access to the team on the other side. From here, Yuri can just grab our second Aether pot, and we can move Gullveig down, fence her, and close out the match.
It will be so.
This was a really fun map to run into. I don't see 6-unit theme teams on defense very often anymore, but this one was exceptionally impressive. All 6 units on this team are plus 10 with max or close to max Dragonflower counts, and half of them also have florets to further improve their stats. They also all have premium kits to work with, from the recently remixed legendary Asaph, all the way down to the denser lean with an Arcane Devourer, Unity, and Firestorm dance. I think the most impressive part about this to me is that none of these units are Formas. Not the Julia, not the Tyne, not the Altina, not the Leaf. All of them are fully invested in on their own, and I think that really speaks to how willing this person is to invest in their favorites, which to me is just an absolute treat to see. This also isn't a team you can afford to take lightly. If you give them a chance, they're more than capable of shredding you apart. You need to approach them with some respect, and I do try to make sure I do that here. I'm not foul playing Gullveig directly into this, since I'd like to give her desperation for these first couple of combats. Going into this, I wasn't sure if I would need to have her take a hit from Tyne or Julia further in the fight, so I'd like to keep her at max health for this first turn. Once we get her in, she can take out Altina and knock out their Guidance 4, which severely limits their ability to catch up to us on the following turn.
It will be so.
Leaf makes an easy second target here.
Fade away.
And from there we can Kanto back and stay out of their range for this first turn. This second turn was still a little tricky to navigate. The best way to avoid having Asaph catch up to us here is to make sure we take out their lean this turn. Doing that means we need to do a little more foul play shenaniganry, but once we do that, it's easy enough for Gullveig to get in, knock out lean, and Kanto back. Dancing her here means that Triandra can Kanto over to the right and we can reposition all the way to safety before moving Ashe out of the way as well. From here, the biggest problem left on this field is the legendary Asaph, and he was one of the reasons I wasn't sure I'd be able to use Gullveig to clear this map in the first place. Thankfully, his 80% damage reduction against mages does have a caveat that we can take advantage of. So we start by knocking out Tyne, and then warp all the way past Ashe to take out Julia.
Your future is set.
With the rest of his team out of the way, Asaph's damage reduction actually goes completely offline, which means that we can dance Gullveig and have her move in to knock him out,
Be so.
without having to worry about his miracle or damage reduction. This map was a very intimidating one to run into at the end of the week, and was also my pick for the highlight of this week's matches. They've got a really scary team here, including a plus 10 Brave Robin, a Guard-bearing 4 Guidance 4 Winter Cordelia, a plus 10 Harmonic Tiki, and a plus 10 New Year's Asker. Tiki and Asker are also both using Unity, which stacks up nicely with the out-of-season legendary Robin in the back, And the two sources of Kanto control combined with the defensive terrain, structures, and traps can make this very hard to hit and run against, especially on the first turn when the team is at its most vulnerable, before the two Robins and Asker's effects kick in. I had a hard time figuring out how to approach this, and ended up having to test this heavy trap in the front to see if it was real. I figured that the heavy trap in front of Cordelia was more likely to be the real one, to try and keep the team safer from gale force approaches, and thankfully I ended up being correct. It lets me go in from the right side of this with Gullveig to attack into New Year's Asker before he can counterattack with a Spiral 4 piercing special. Which is really important because Gullveig ends up needing to take two major hits here. One from the Asker, who is just out of their Tiki's save range, before moving over and using her second action to one-round this Tiki. Taking Tiki out in one round here does require a fire patch to already be deployed from Third Sparrow. Without the extra 7 damage, Gullveig would just barely miss this knockout. And if we weren't able to knock her out on the first turn, the two unities would kick in and make it even harder to finish her off. From there, we just need to dance her to try and work on escaping. Thankfully, Triandra dancing Ash from here is out of range of both Kanto controls, which lets her move over, giving Ash space to reposition Peony to safety before Gullveig jumps over Ash and repositions her to the right. The first turn went well, but things aren't quite stable yet. We still need to deal with this Cordelia before she lets the Robins warp forward and take out anybody on our team. Thankfully, a smite lets Gullveig warp past Ash to do exactly that. And from here, the fire is going to limit Legendary Robin's movement by quite a bit, so we can just dance here and stay safe for the turn, letting Gullveig move over and knock out the Brave Robin.
Fade away.
And from there, one more dance lets Gullveig get one more knockout this turn,
As always.
knocking out the Murderous, and putting everybody out of the danger zone for this turn. And with most of their threats dismantled, we can just start moving forward to claim both Aether Pots next turn, and take out the Tactic Ring to make sure it doesn't get in the way. Robin ends up just rallying Embla here, so he doesn't move anywhere. And at this point, it's easy enough for Gullveig to start cleaning things up. Embla is not a problem for her. And after we pick up the Aether Pot with that extra action, we can just dance her with Triandra to make sure we have Desperation if it's needed, and then move in, take out the Legendary Robin, and close out the match. This was a fun map to close out the week with. While I don't think it's quite as intimidating as the last one was, it's still a really impressive squad. They've got a +10 Halloween Duma and +10 Brave Edelgard, keeping their team safe from any hit and run or player phase approaches, along with a maxed out Volk and a +10 Yuri on the backline as their primary threats. Together with Katria, they're not a pair of units I would feel comfortable trying to tank, especially since they did a really excellent job of synchronizing the entire team's attack stats, enabling the legendary Eliud in the back to give all of them a full set of stats, bonus doubler, and null panic. I think Yune is the only one who misses out on the +6 res since she's not in range of Medias, but overall this is a pretty intimidating team and not something I would feel comfortable trying to tank. Thankfully, we're not trying to tank with Gullveig here, and as impressive as Duma is, he is a red unit. and we're attacking him on turn 1 before the bonus doubler gets to kick in. Repositioning Yuri forwards here means that we get to test 2 traps this turn instead of just 1, and get Gullveig in range with a penalty doubler as a bit of extra overkill to start dismantling their team. Doom actually doesn't get any damage reduction here since Gullveig just attack checks him and health checks him pretty easily. And then she can use her second action to knock out Edelgard and clear out their front line. Knocking out these two is the most important part of this first turn, since without them, the team doesn't have anyone to warp forward past, and can't actually reach too far onto the map at all. And with those out of the way, we can just foul play Gullveig forward onto the Hex Trap, and let her go to work on the rest of the team. Medias is our first target to eliminate Canto control.
The cycle's power.
And then we can warp back, move Ash over, and start dancing. Getting Katria here is going to lock Volk behind a wall of fire, and make it impossible for him to actually reach Peony when she dances Gullveig here.
Maybe this way.
That dance lets her move over and finish off Yune, boxing the rest of their team in and keeping us safe for the following turn.
It will be done.
We also smite Yuri over here, just setting up to reach this second Aether pot before we close out the match. Smiting Ash over means that he can warp 4 tiles to reach that Aether pot, and then Gullveig can go take out Elliewood.
Once more, once more.
Before using her extra action to attack Volk and close out the week. I had a lot of fun this week. While things started out pretty slowly, the later matches were a fantastic time. Also a bit nail-biting after a goof-up in the first match cost me 2 Aether pots, but I did manage to get the week back on track afterwards. Gullveig will be taking a break next week to let Shez have some time in her bonus season, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what she can do when her own bonus weeks arrive after that. I do have a Discord channel if you'd like to hang out and chat. There's a link in the description, and I've also got a Patreon link there if you'd like to help support the channel. As always, I hope you've enjoyed the video, good luck with your own matches, and I'll see you next time.